wow, there are so many fish. So I am at 120 feet right now. You know, basically from 20 to 100 feet out, there is a pile of fish. So we're gonna cast on a couple more of these here. Jeez, that is a big group. There's a couple coming up. Geez, they are fired up. You guys fired up? There you bit. One's following it. Yup. We are starting off with a bang. Well, welcome back. As you may or may not be able to tell, it is a cold and miserable day out today, but I'm feeling good because we are back out in the boat. It is officially open water. So we're gonna be targeting some ice out crappies. The ice literally just went out in probably the last couple days here. And so we're gonna kind of go through my progression that I go through when the ice gets off the lakes, trying to find some of these crappies, where I start, where I move to, kind of that natural progression that I see, especially as that transition gets closer to spawn. And so what we're gonna start out with, we're gonna start with the basin. Obviously where they left off a lot of times in the winter is still around that basin area. Sometimes as more oxygen gets poured into the lakes, as kind of that runoff happens, and as the water starts to warm up, right now we're sitting at about 41 degrees, actually a little bit warmer than I was anticipating. But those fish might transition even under the ice towards some of those spawning grounds, depending on the body of water. So we're gonna drive around the basin here, see if we find anything. Actually, as I look around, I didn't even plan this. I do see some fish maybe up ahead, but we're actually out over 29 feet. These fish are 50 feet down. I promise I did not do any scouting. I literally just got out and was gonna set up to do a little intro. And as I was sitting here, I saw these fish. So who knows if they're gonna be crappies. We'll cast on them. Oof, they're about 30 feet that way. We'll see if we can even get to them. Oh, I don't think I'm recording my live scope. Oop, I'm not recording my live scope, but I'm hooked up. Okay, I promise this is not pre-rigged where I was kind of scheduling it, going finding fish first. It's actually a nice fish, oh my goodness. Okay, this is a little bit ridiculous. I'll be 100% honest, I was not anticipating them being in the basin. I was kind of anticipating them being on the next spot, but one of the tips that I'll talk about is they can be in multiple spots. We are starting off with a bang. Honestly, a very good size fish for what I was anticipating for this body of water. I'm just gonna put it on the bump board quick, mouth closed. Oh my goodness. This is way bigger than I was expecting. This one's almost 14 inches. It was like 13 and a half or so. Wow, that is quite the way to start. So yeah, that was definitely not staged. Literally just came out of this basin to talk, and here we pluck potentially the biggest crappie of the day. I don't know, much bigger than I was expecting. But we'll fish this basin for a little bit, and then if that's what we're seeing, that's what we'll fish. If we're not seeing a lot of groups, I'll kind of show you some of these different areas that I'll target, or I'll also talk through kind of the transition, what they're gonna be doing probably within the next few days, within the next week for sure, because who knows when this video is gonna come out. Well, that was a long intro. I'm gonna get my live scope recording, and then we will talk through kind of basin crappies and some different tips for some of these ice out fish. Seeing another small group there, and then there's a bigger group. So I'm gonna get a little closer to those guys, and then spot lock here at about 30 feet. There I can start to see myself. There's a couple coming up. Geez, they are fired up. The ones that are out here are fired up. Another decent one too. Man, I am glad I had to change plans. You know, I was trying to find a couple other lakes just to get a better size structure, but man alive, I am very impressed with the size structure. I was thinking we were maybe gonna get a lot of like 10 at most, but that first one was almost 14. That one didn't even measure, but was another decent one. That school is still here. So we're gonna try to get around it. They're kind of moving that way. Oh, one's following it. One's following it, yep. God, these things are fired up. I tell you what, I honestly thought this kind of cold front conditions like this, been super nasty. Man, some nice fish. Well, I am having too much fun just catching these. First of all, just being back out in the boat. So I haven't been talking through a lot of tips. I'm going to maybe catch one or two more, and then we will talk through a few tips. See them? They're still off to the side there, about 30, 35 feet. See if I can get out. There, it's dropping down. Just hanging above them. If I can hang it above them like that, that's preferred. Sometimes you can pull out some of those bigger fish, even like we've seen today. Although that time, oh, there's one. There's one he pulled away from the group. God, the ones that are going for it are fired up. That is not a big group, and we've been able to pull a few. Man, just dogging it too. Oh, don't get me wrong, I love ice fishing. And I love chasing walleyes. But the first time getting out in the boat locally like this, catching a bunch of these, whew, I will take that all, day long. Again, this is where it's so nice. This group is moving fairly quickly, but not outrageous where it's really tough to stay on them. So I've just been using spot lock jog, move a little closer, and then I do get reset because with the wind, with all the conditions, wanting to get accurate casts. So I let the boat stop swinging a little bit, then they're not too far. And I do want to try to get some live scope footage for you guys. So trying to make sure we're stopped moving a little bit so you can see some of that as well. There, one's coming up for it. There we go. I didn't get a great cast on them, but just got close enough to where this one kind of came through. You can see it separate from the group a little bit. Not as big as some of the other ones, but still a lot of fun. Wow. This one's, like I said, this one's honestly a little more of what I was expecting from some of these fish. Whoa. So, now that we've had a little fun catching a few, just want to talk through a few different tips. The first tip is don't get stuck into one pattern, because sometimes these lakes, when there's so much changing very quickly with water temps, with weather, with all the things, when the ice gets off, there can be multiple bites going on at one time. There can be a relatively shallow bite going on. There can still be a basin bite going on. There can be fish in multiple areas. So if you're seeing like this, I saw one group of fish, caught a few. Now it's easy to get stuck on only doing basin the whole time. If you're not seeing a ton more fish, don't be afraid to try the next couple locations, which we might even go and look at some of that in a little bit. But the next couple of locations that I do try is first, find the basin. Second is I like to try either some sort of intermediate flat or secondary basin, meaning maybe not the deepest basin that's like 30, 35, 40 feet. Maybe not looking in that area so much as looking into something that's maybe like a 15-foot flat, or maybe there is a little bit of a trough that leads up to some shallower water that's in that 10 to 20 feet. You know, something that's not the deepest part, not the deepest basin, but almost like that secondary, that intermediate flat, intermediate basin. That's the second area that I'm gonna go and target. You know, a third area that I'll target is shorelines. You know, as those fish get closer to that spawning time, they're gonna move closer to those shorelines, especially if there's some sort of steep break adjacent to some very shallow, weedy, especially if there's some of those reeds that are sticking up. If you know the spawning ground, obviously that cuts down the time a lot, because you can go from the basin to the spawning ground. You can almost draw a straight line. If there's some interesting stuff in between or on the sides a little bit, you can go look at that. But they will be transitioning to that. So I'll go basin first, then I will go to that intermediate secondary flat. Try to look around there a little bit, and then I'll transition from those break lines, especially adjacent to shallow, weedy flats. If there's those reeds sticking out, even better. Obviously, if there is nothing going on, I'm not seeing anything even on those breaks, then there's a good chance that those fish have moved shallow already. You know, that doesn't happen until water warms up a little bit more, but that can also happen if it's muddy and it's been sunny. That water can warm up very quickly, and they can go in there honestly when there's still ice on parts of the lake. So don't neglect looking in there. Sometimes you can look at that just with your eyes and see fish even up in there. Sometimes you just identify it by finding these bigger, more expansive flats that are like less than 10 for sure, maybe even less than 5 feet, where there's some old reeds, some old weeds, but for sure looking for that muddy bottom. So if you're not seeing it on any of those other first 3 spots, then go look into those shallows. But again, the point, don't get stuck on one bite. Yes, we're seeing fish out in the basin. That doesn't mean that's the only bite going on, and we'll likely go and try some other stuff out here soon. Well, I hope this wind isn't too bad. Another thing I did want to share is sometimes different size fish can be in different areas. You know, maybe those bigger fish are still out in the basin where some of those smaller fish are moving up shallow. Maybe vice versa. Those bigger fish are starting to move their way towards spawning grounds where some of the smaller fish. Sometimes I've found where different size structure, different groups of fish will school in different areas. Not always, but that's one thing. If you're only finding smaller fish, try something different. See if there's some of those bigger fish hanging out in some of those different areas. But now we're going to chase a few more basin fish around a little bit, and then I'll talk through some of the rod reel line setup, and we'll also go and check some of those transition areas. So stick around if you want to see if those transition areas are happening just yet. We'll do that a little bit closer to the end. But one thing I will say, I said it was 42 degrees. Again, it's a very kind of a generality when we're talking water temps. You know, people want a magic number of when they move to certain areas, and I've witnessed so many different things on so many different lakes, and it can change day by day because the sun gets, you know, beaten on these lakes, and it can put that surface temp up high. So I'm going to give very general areas. You know, a lot of times I find that right after ice out, you know, those fish can still be in the basin like this. As it continues to warm up into that like 40 to 50, 40 to 55 degrees, they move into some of those transition areas. Then once it gets kind of that 55 and up, that's where you can really start to see some of that push into the spawning grounds. Again, I don't like to have hard and fast rules of this just because it's very variable. But those are just some of the generalities that I see with water temps as it comes to the springtime. But a lot of variables depending on your lake. So we're gonna go chase some of these basin fish, and then we'll talk through a few more of those details. So essentially what I'm doing right now is just kind of working my way from that basin, driving towards that intermediate flat, and then panning around. And there is a group over there. Let's see if we can go get around them. Start slowing down. Zoom in quite a bit. Zoom in a little. That looks like a better size group. Doesn't always mean better size fish. Let's see if we can't. A couple of those look pretty good. Oop, one's coming out from the group. That one looks better. Come on. There you bit. There you bit. You can see that one come right out from that group. Oh, that's fun. And actually that wind's dying down a touch. The sun is coming out. I think we have a decent fish on. Yeah, that's a solid fish. Man, that was fun. That was a big group. We're going to try to stay around them. Not as big as that first one, but kind of looking at maybe 12 inches or so. That is a beauty of a fish. I'm going to really quickly talk through kind of presentation, setup, that kind of thing. And so what I've been using today is the Northland Crappie King jig. And this is actually the Crappie King fly. I like this one. You can see I'm not even tipping with anything. A few of those hairs have gotten kind of pulled off now, but not tipping with anything, which is really nice. Not to worry about minnows, not to worry about anything like that. You can really cast around, and you can see some of these fish have really been smoking it. So kind of a nice presentation to use early in the year like this, where you don't have to be digging in cold bait buckets, anything like that. Another thing I will do is I will tip it with a plastic, or I will go to a straight just Crappie King jig with no hair and a plastic as well. Oh my goodness, I'm seeing a giant group right here. Jeez. It's like right underneath us. I don't know if these are crappies. I don't know if they are bluegills. Oh boy, there's a bunch of them though. We'll see maybe. Geez, there's two big groups. Ooh. They're starting to come up for it. Jeez, there's so many of them. Jeez, that is a big group. Kind of thinking this might be a crappie. It sure is. Not big. Whoa, you see that wind? I'll kind of push it away from me. Wow, that is a massive group. There's two massive groups. I'm guessing a lot of them are going to be that size like that. But like you saw there, that got down very quickly. This one is the 1/8. I like going to a 1/8 size, like going a little heavier like that so I can get down in these windy conditions especially. Not having bait is just very convenient. The other thing, like I said, I will do is I will put a plastic on there. Actually, Northland came out with these new, they're called pan candy plastics. I have ordered some. I've not got to use them yet. I'm really looking forward to those though, because it is that TPE plastic that is so durable. I like having this. I've been using longer rods a little bit more just because, as you can see today, like when it's windy, if I need to cast, having a little bit more length is nice. Yes, it's nice having this 1/8 ounce jig, so that will help as well. A combination of a little bit longer rod, this is a 7-foot light, with a little bit heavier jig, you can cast a mile. Very nice if these fish are moving like this or if you want to stay off them. The next really important thing is having some sort of very castable line. Honestly, kind of my favorite right now has been Daiwa J-braid in like a 4-pound test. You can cast that a mile as well. There's been some more companies that are coming out with some forward-facing sonar, specific type ones. We'll see if they're gimmicky or if they're legit. Looking forward to trying those out. But number one, just having something castable, because these light jigs, again, not always easy to cast, especially if there's some wind. And then I'm pairing that with the, I don't know if you can see that, Piscifun Carbon X2 1000. Probably my favorite panfish reel for any time of the year, honestly, when it's open water. Sometimes we'll go down to a 500. If I'm looking for like a really finicky or a really sensitive, I will go down to a 6-foot light rod, and then I will sometimes go down to the 500 size Carbon X. I do have this on a, I think it's a 4-pound fluorocarbon leader with an FG knot, just to get through those guides very easily. That's kind of what I'm using for this kind of run and gun style where you're chasing some of these fish around. Got another big group sitting down there, so we're gonna go chase them around. Like I said, I'm gonna work my way towards that kind of intermediate area. So that's where we're headed. We'll see you there. All right, this, you can see this group right underneath us. We're probably gonna go away, but you can see that one looks definitely more like bluegills, smaller, tighter. This, oh boy, these are some, oh my goodness. These are some giant groups right here. Wow, there are so many fish. Oh my goodness. Wow, that is so many fish. Insane. I gotta take a quick picture of that. Those ones that are sitting up higher like that, a little more spread out, those look more like maybe some better crappies. Oh my goodness. Look at that group. That's so many fish. I'll kind of explain where we're at here in just a second. But I'm gonna cast onto those things. Kind of have a feeling these big groups like this are not the ones we're looking for. But we'll see. There we go. Maybe okay. This is an okay fish. That would be nice because there is a pile of them. Kind of explain where we're at here. Let's see. Nope. I mean, really not bad, honestly. For the size of the school, I was kind of thinking they're going to be really tiny fish. But we're actually kind of sitting okay here. Wow. That is so many fish. I don't know if you can see that. That is absolutely insane. I'm going to go even farther. So I am at 120 feet right now, and you can see such, you know, basically from 20 to 100 feet out, there is a pile of fish. So we're gonna cast on a couple more of these here. So basically, like I said, I was moving towards that intermediate flat, and we're up in about 25 feet here. And so we're not at that flat yet. We're almost at that funnel that goes into the flat. So it's just the start of that transition period, I think, you know, where they're moving to that shallow, because it's that secondary flat or that intermediate flat, and then closer to some of those muddy bays and shallow weedy flats. So you can see a lot of that, those basin fish have kind of pushed in. Seems some of the bigger ones are in smaller groups out in the basin, but a few of these fish have started moving shallower into these giant groups like this, kind of like a big funnel, right into their kind of pre-spawn areas. Yeah, that is just a ridiculous amount. Cast over that direction here. Maybe. Oh, that one looked decent. That one looked decent. Pulled it right out of its mouth. Set the hook a little too hard. That is the one thing with braid. You don't want to do what I just did, where you set it just a touch too hard. That guy swung and missed. Jeez. This guy's fired up. There you bit. With braid, you don't need to set the hook very hard. Honestly, it's just like a little lift like that. This guy's feeling decent. Either that or he's just dogging me. No, a decent fish. Well, that giant group may have some decent fish too. You can see a few kind of sitting on top there. That is pretty slick. So since there's some decent fish, maybe I'll try One more cast over that direction. Can just barely see it over there. Pull it through. Honestly, I could just be, there we go. Could just be slow retrieving as well, but I'd like to try get some of the live scope footage for you guys. So I want to try keep it in the frame. But honestly, there's so many fish, I could just slow troll. This guy's starting to dog a little better, but he is not anything big. Okay, that is that's gonna do it, I think. It is so many nice fish here. So I don't know how many people will leave a video, stop it when you have a group of fish sitting out in front of you, just like that, but we're gonna call it. We got the information that we needed from today. Again, one of my main purposes is to educate. Yes, it's fun to catch fish, but you don't need to see me catch 100 more of these mid-range crappies like this. So hopefully we're able to get some information on what these fish are doing after ice out. Again, it's kind of lake dependent, so I'm gonna be shooting some more videos this spring as they transition into getting some of that shallower areas, kind of show where they are, what they're doing, and hopefully catch some more nice crappies. Either way, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something today. We'll see you next time.